You mute.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today's topic is heart disease complicating pregnancy. Okay, it's a huge topic, and we won't be able to cover each and every heart disease. But overall view of heart disease, I mean, like overall, what are the types of heart disease in pregnancy, and what are the complications you expect in pregnancy, and what are the care should be given for the heart disease pregnant woman. Those things we discussed today. So I'll start with uh, discussion. And can you hear me, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay,
Yes,
fine.
ma'am.
Okay. So first of all, the heart disease is like the incidence of heart disease. So in hospital deliveries, there is the incidence is 1%, and then all of you know that heart disease is like it can be a congenital heart disease or rheumatic heart disease. Rheumatic heart disease nothing but infection or infective endocarditis, and these rheumatic heart disease carries more. I mean, the incidence rate is more when compared to the congenital heart disease. The rheumatic heart disease and congenital heart disease goes in 3:1 ratio. So, so you all have to know what are the types of heart disease, first of all. Okay. Rheumatic valvular lesions. Those are usually mitral stenosis, mitral incompetence, stenosis, and aortic incompetence. And then mitral stenosis carries larger, I mean, like it is of 80%. And then congenital heart disease are atrial septal defect and ventricular septal defect, pulmonary stenosis, patent ductus arteriosus, and aortic coarctation. And others are peripartum and hypertensive thyrotoxic cardiomyopathy. So so I repeat, there is 1% among hospital deliveries. The incidence of the heart disease is 1%, and the rheumatic heart disease is more when compared to the congenital heart disease. And the types of rheumatic heart disease are mitral stenosis, mitral incompetence, and aortic stenosis and aortic incompetence. Among all these, mitral stenosis is more when compared to the mitral incompetence and aortic stenosis on all other heart diseases, rheumatic heart diseases. Then congenital are atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect, pulmonary stenosis, patent ductus arteriosus, and aortic coarctation. And you should not neglect peripartum cardiomyopathy and hypertensive cardiomyopathy, as well as thyrotoxic cardiomyopathy. It also is very dangerous conditions. So we would like to move on to the normal physiology. What are the cardiovascular changes that you see in pregnancy? So usually the cardiac output is increases by 30 to 50% during pregnancy. Usually when the mother before the pregnancy, after the pregnancy, once she conceived, it starts increasing in the second trimester, and it peaks at 28 to 32 weeks of pregnancy. So, along with the cardiac output, there is increase in heart rate also. It increases by 10 to 15 beats per minute. That too, it will increase in second trimester, more in 14 to 20 weeks of pregnancy. And then what about the blood pressure? There is systolic and diastolic blood pressure lowered due to reduced peripheral vascular resistance. So there is fall in the blood pressure. And don't no need to get panic. Once if you see the patient BP, once it was normotensive, suddenly she goes into hypotension in pregnancy. Some amount due to some amount of increase in lowered due to reduced peripheral vascular resistance, there is fall in the blood pressure, as well as plasma volume also increases by 40 to 45%, and then RBC volume increases by 15 to 20%. Here you have to notice one thing. There is plasma volume, there is increase in plasma volume, which is of 40 to 45%. But when you observe, there is red blood cell volume increases only by 15 to 20%. That means there is some hemodilution. There is increase in plasma volume, but RBC is also increasing, but not up to the extent of increase in plasma volume. So this is very important slide. Please all of you note there is increase in cardiac output, which is peaks at 28 to 32 weeks, and there is increase in heart rate by 10 to 15 beats per minute, and there is fall in blood pressure, and there is increase in plasma volume by 40 to 45%, and RBC volume by 15 to 20%. So we we have to see what are the effects of pregnancy on maternal cardiac disease. So, congestive, usually when the patient comes to you with heart disease, not that all the patients has to be in failure. So, particularly if patient comes with breathlessness, orthopnea, or paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, or there is pedal edema, diffuse pedal edema, then we have to think that patient is in failure. So, what are the effects you see in the pregnancy due to cardiac disease? That is congestive cardiac failure with 10% of maternal mortality rate and progression of functional grade of the disease. Usually, we grade the heart disease by NYHA classification, New York Heart Association classification. According to that, we divide into 4 grades. So, according to if the functional grading of the disease has been increased, that means definitely it will increase in the pregnancy, and there is chance of thromboembolisms and infective endocarditis. So we have to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis prior, during antenatally. So these are the effects of pregnancy on maternal cardiac disease. And then, so high risk period for cardiac compensation. Usually, it doesn't affect much in first trimester. Once the gestational age advance, the progression of pregnancy, the disease complications also will be more. It peaks at 28 to 32 weeks of gestation and during labor and delivery as well as preparium. So these are the three phases of pregnancy. The cardiac decompensation is more. So I repeat, there is cardiac decompensation at 28 to 32 weeks, as well as labor and delivery, as well as preparium. At these three conditions, there is more of cardiac failure. So, what are the effects of maternal cardiac disease and pregnancy? So, till now, we discussed about what are the effects of pregnancy on cardiac disease. Now, we discuss about the effects of maternal cardiac disease on pregnancy. So, what are the complications you can expect in during antenatal period of a cardiac disease pregnancy? So, you can there is severe IUGR due to placental insufficiency, and there is preterm delivery as well as intrauterine fetal death, and there is congenital heart disease in the neonate. So same congenital heart disease is also carried during to the fetus. So we can expect there is can be IUGR and preterm delivery as well as intrauterine fetal death as well as congenital heart disease in the neonate. So how do you diagnose when the patient comes with heart disease? How do you differentiate whether she is in failure or it is well tolerated heart disease? So patient gives history of easy fatigability, and there is shortness of breath, and there is orthopnea and paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea. So, patient tells that even with small work, I have the giddiness or I feel breathless. I'm not able to do my regular activities, and there is shortness of breath and orthopnea. All of you know what is orthopnea, guys. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Shortness of breath in while lying down.
Lying down posture. Okay. And then what is paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea?
The
The
person
patient wakes up suddenly at night due to shortness of breath
With
and they like
shortness of
have
breath
air
during
hunger.
the night time. And there is orthopneic dry cough. Patient present with the when the patient is in lying down posture, she presents with the dry cough, and there is excess weight gain. Okay. So there is a patient presents with pedal edema, and then there is hepatomegaly and raised JVP, and there is tachycardia and S3 gallop and basilar rails. So you can see crepes in the base of the lung. So these are all the complications. These are the symptoms, symptoms as well as signs you see in the failure. Okay, and symptoms of progressive dyspnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, features of congestive heart failure, and there is patient present with chest pain, hemoptysis, and systolic murmur of grade 3, and presence of diastolic murmur and persistent arrhythmias, and presence of clubbing or cyanosis. So they might present with all these things. So, how do they present? They present with easy fatigability and shortness of breath, orthopnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, orthopnic dry cough, excess weight gain. And there will be pedal edema, hepatomegaly, raised JVP, tachycardia, and S3 gallop and bibasilar rails. Crepes can be heard. And symptoms of progressive dyspnea and the features of congestive heart failure. They present with chest pain, hemoptysis, systolic murmur of grade 3, and presence of diastolic murmur, persistent arrhythmias, presence of clubbing or cyanosis. So, all of you please note down this slide. This is Newark Heart Association classification. So, it is graded into 4: grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. So, uncompromised state with heart disease. Patient has history of heart disease, but it is an uncompromised state. Patient is totally asymptomatic and no symptoms of palpitation or shortness of breath with ordinary physical activity. Her household work, regular activities, what she does with that, she never feel the symptoms of palpitation or breathless, shortness of breath. When you come to grade 2, that is slightly compromised state with ordinary physical activity but comfortable at rest. They are comfortable at rest. When they take rest, they feel comfortable, but they have slightly compromised state. I mean, like slightly breathlessness they might present with the ordinary physical activity. Coming to grade 3, markedly compromised state with minimal activity. And grade 4 is severely compromised state with discomfort even at rest. So they feel discomfort with even at the rest. So assessment of risk and prognosis. So all of you has noted down this slide, students. So all of you know what is grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. So by this grading, we have to take care of the patient. If it is uncompromised state with heart disease, no symptoms or palpitation, shortness of breath, the management is differs. When the patient comes with severely compromised state and discomfort even at rest, the management will differ. So this is very important. This NYHA classification, by grading, we can know by the severity of the heart disease. And then assessment of risk and prognosis. So usually, which are all patients, it is the falls under the high risk group, and age of the patient is more than 35 years, and history of previous pregnancies, I mean multiple pregnancies, I mean multiparity, and functional grading of the heart. If the grade is more than 3, then definitely it is a compromised state. So the care should be, extra care should be given for the mother, and nature of the lesion, and that depends upon the which lesion. If it is incompetence, that it doesn't affect much, but if in case of stenosed valves, the severity of the disease or risk of the prognosis is will be poor. So these are the assessment of risk and prognosis by age of the patient more than 35 years and history of previous pregnancies and functional grading of the heart and nature of the lesion. And how do you manage during pregnancy? Okay, first patient gives first in the first trimester when patient walks into the hospital, comes to the OPD. First, you would like to ask the history or not, and you will assess the history. So from the history, you have to ask the patient. You usually ask whether patient is having any heart disease or patient is having any lung pathology like bronchial asthma or any diabetics, hypertensive. Uh, so we have to take the proper history of the patient, and then if she gives you history of heart disease, so by her history itself we can come to know whether it is a congenital heart disease, whether it is there since her childhood or it was presented later. So usually if they present later, usually it can be a rheumatic. It doesn't mean that some congenital heart disease might present in the later pregnancies also. If you take ASDs, VSDs and all, usually they come they'll be totally asymptomatic. When they become pregnant, they'll become symptomatic because of physiological changes that you see in the pregnancy. So we have to assess by asking the history, thorough history, whether she had she congenital heart disease or it is an acquired heart disease, that is rheumatic heart disease, whether she had any infective to endocarditis prophylaxis in the past, whether she had any surgeries related to the heart disease, and is she on any blood thinners like ecosprin or thromboprophylaxis she is taking. All this history, thorough history should be taken. So care in a tertiary care center, usually how do you manage pregnancy? You can't manage a pregnancy in a PHC. So you can't manage a pregnancy in a small clinic. You should have a proper tertiary care center, which should have a cardiologist and 24 hours ICU and backup should be required. So ideal place for delivering a patient with a heart disease is a tertiary care center with an experienced obstetrician and a cardiologist and an anesthetist around the clock. And there is antenatal checkups every fortnight, every second weekly, 2 weekly. There should be antenatal visits till 30 weeks. Later on, weekly checkup should be there. That is only in grade 1 and grade 2 disease. So patient is a known case of heart disease, but patient is asymptomatic, and the patient is doesn't have any breathlessness with her regular activities, and patient is having mild breathlessness with regular activity, but with rest there is no symptoms. Those patients only can be seen to bi-weekly or by 2 weeks once, up to 30 weeks. Later on it has to be seen every weekly. Only grade 1, grade 2. If you take grade 3, grade 4, that means if they have breathlessness with even with the small activity as well as even with the rest, then we have to consider the patient to be admitted and treated. So those grade 1, grade 2 patients, you can ask the patient to come for regular antenatal checkups, and grade 3, grade 4 patients, you need to hospitalize the patient. And then a routine treatment like routine iron and folic acid supplementation, ask the patient to take adequate bed rest, and dietary salt restriction is and less dietary history also we have to ask advise the patient to take less oily foods, and as well as salt restriction is advised. And to report if there are any warning signs of congestive heart failure. So if the patient suddenly becomes breathless, as well as if she present with pedal edema, severe pedal edema, and if she has any orthopnea or dry cough, and you have to ask the patient to turn up to the hospital and advise for delivery in a tertiary care center only. We can't advise the patient to go for a small centers or small nursing homes, or you can't advise the patient where there is no cardiac backup or there is no ICU. So you have to ask the patient to get admitted in a tertiary care center. And prophylaxis for infective endocarditis. So with next slide, we'll see how what are the infective endocarditis prophylaxis. And to continue the treatment with cardiac serious disease, whatever she was taking earlier, she has to continue that. And digitalis, that is digoxin can be given, and penicillin prophylaxis and diuretics. These are the three modes of treatment that has to be given during the compromised state. So how do you manage antenatally? So you have seen, like other pregnancies, how you manage the same way, like same antenatal checkups, but more frequent of antenatal checkups every 2 weeks once, and then routine fetal growth, and we have to do fetal echo, and to rule out any congenital heart disease for the baby as well as, and we have to see the like a regular BP, blood pressure, and pulse rate, and patient is she going into failure, those has to be checked. So once the patient set into labor, how do you manage? So management of labor and delivery. So normal delivery is preferred in LSCS. Why? Because there is chance of more infections during LSCS when compared to the normal delivery. So there is, if it is rheumatic heart disease, if you do, the severity of the disease will increase. So better we give a normal delivery. There is no absolute indication for LSCS, and bedders to be given for the patient. And always when the patient is in labor, you put the patient in semi-recumbent position in first and second stage of labor. Always patient should be in upright position, that is semi-recumbent position. And then we have to give infective endocarditic prophylaxis. What is that infective endocarditic prophylaxis? In case of rheumatic heart disease like mitral stenosis, mitral case, or any valvular heart diseases, as well as if the patient had gone for prosthetic valves in previous history of heart surgeries, those patients we give the infective endocarditic prophylaxis. That is IV or intramuscular, intravenous or intramuscular injection. That is ampicillin 2 grams, and injection gentamicin 1.5 milligram per kg body weight, start dose, followed by every 6th hourly. So this is the infective endocarditic prophylaxis. That is nothing but IV or intramuscular injection of ampicillin 2 grams and injection gentamicin 1.5 milligram per kg body weight should be given, followed by every 6th hourly. And then always you have to restrict the IV fluids. You can't give like normal pregnant lady. Like we have to restrict the fluids to prevent the overload to the heart. And there is always patient should be in semi-recumbent position with oxygen inhalation. So one more thing, usually complications. I mean, like if the patient is in labor, better you give her good analgesics. Like you can give intramuscular tramadol injection, or you can give epidural analgesia, which is a good to adequate analgesia should be given in case of heart disease. And every half an hourly, we have to monitor the vitals, and monitor vitals every half an hourly. And you have to, when the first stage of labor and second stage of labor, always you have to put the patient in semi-recumbent position and check the pulse rate and BP every half an hourly. Look for any signs of failure. What are the signs? The breathlessness, shortness of breath, and patient will present suddenly with cough, and there will be cracks in the basal heart. That is the signs of congestive heart failure. So check for the signs of the failure. And in case of second stage of labor, what is second stage of labor? Can anyone answer? What is the second?
Delivery of the fetus.
Is it delivery of the fetus? That is from the full dilatation of the cervix to the delivery of the fetus. So it is between the full dilatation of the cervix to the delivery of the fetus. So in this stage, usually the cardiac overload, I mean cardiac output will increase double the time than the normal output. So there is more chance of the heart failure. So we have to cut short the second stage of the labor by applying the outlet forceps. So we use vacuum or outlet forceps for cut short of the second stage to prevent the cardiac overload. And always we have to avoid methergin and administration of oxytocin by infusion. Methergin is what? Can anyone answer? Methergin is what? What is that? What is methergin? Can you hear me? What is methergin? Methergin is nothing but the
Ergometry, ma'am.
methyl ergometrin, which is
Uterine contraction.
yeah, as well as it is a vasoconstrictor. So uh, that is should be avoided in case of the heart disease. And administration of oxytocin by an infusion. Bolus we can't give anyway, but infusion can be given, but with caution. Okay. So so we have to avoid the prolonged second stage of labor by applying the outlet forceps. We have to deliver the patient as early as possible and avoid methogen as well as the administration of oxytocin in infusion. And then how do you manage after delivery? So as we discussed earlier, there is complications of heart disease is more. It peaks at 32 weeks as well as during labor as well as during preparia. So we have to give utmost care at these three stages. So management of puparium, we have to see again, watch for symptoms and signs of congestive heart failure. And if there is any anemia, we have to correct the anemia and treat the infections and prevent the thromboembolisms. But how do you prevent thromboembolisms? So we have to early mobilize the patient. If the patient is obese, we have to mobilize the patient early, as well as we have to give thromboprophylaxis by giving the heparin. Okay, a low molecular weight heparin we can give. And then we ask the patient to go for barrier contraceptive. So it is not advisable for the heart patient to give oral contraceptives. So there is more chance of thrombus formation in if the patient use oral contraceptive, combined oral contraceptive like estrogen and progesterone pills. So advise the patient to go for barrier contraceptive rather using the OCPs. And advise the patient if it is severity of the heart disease like more, then we have to ask the patient to go for permanent sterilization. Okay, you got it how to manage in piparium. So you have to look for the symptoms and signs of congestive heart failure and treat anemia and infections and prevent thromboembolism by giving the low molecular weight heparin as well as advise the patient to go for the barrier contraceptive and permanent sterilization. So management of congestive heart failure. How we have to manage a patient whether when the patient is in failure. So if it is well tolerated labor, with heart disease, well and good. If the patient goes into congestive heart failure, how do we have to manage? Same way as we discussed earlier, always put the patient in semi-recumbent position, bed rest with passive leg exercises to prevent thromboembolisms. And we have to advise the patient to use the stockings, DVT stocking, deep vein thrombosis stockings. And we have to advise patient to early mobilize, early ambulation is advisable. And ask the patient to be in bed rest and as well as semi-recumbent position, and oxygen inhalation should be given. And we have to give diuretics for the patient, that is furosemide IV 20 milligram bolus repeated at every 30 to 60 minutes interval. So diuretics has to be given in every 30 to 60 minutes of IV bolus. And digitalization with tablet digoxin, that is 1 to 1.5 milligram for 24 hours with maintenance dose of 0.25 milligram. And advise the patient to take vasodilators, that is, no, we give vasodilators for the patient, that is NTG grip. If nitroglycerin drip has to be given. So patient has to be, when the patient is in congestive heart failure, patient has to be kept in the high dependency unit or in intensive care unit. And put the patient in semi-recumbent position, advise the compression stockings or leg exercise has to be given. And diuretics, that is furosemide IV 20 milligram bolus, repeated, should be repeated every 30 to 60 minutes interval. And digitalization, that is with tablet digoxin 1 to 1.5 milligram for 24 hours with maintenance dose of 0.25 milligram. And then nitroglycerin drip has to be kept for the patient. So maternal tolerance to specific treatment. Okay, specific heart disease, maternal tolerance to specific heart disease. So what are all the conditions are well tolerated, and which are all the heart diseases are poorly tolerated in case of pregnancy? So well tolerated conditions are aortic as well as mitral insufficiency. These conditions, both aortic insufficiency, that is regurgitation diseases, all are well tolerated. That is like aortic and mitral regurgitations are well tolerated. And well tolerated if no pulmonary hypertension. If there is no pulmonary hypertension, ASD, atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect, and patent ductus arteriosus are well tolerated in pregnancy. So when the patient comes to you prior to the conception, if they ask that I'm a case of atrial septal defect, that is ASD or VSD or PDA, and regurgitation disease. If she seeks your advice whether I can continue the pregnancy, I can get pregnant or I can continue the pregnancy, then you can assure her that she can very well have very well continue the pregnancy as well as she can conceive. And aortic and mitral insufficiency are well tolerated in the pregnancy. And variable tolerance, that is aortic stenosis, stenotic valvular heart disease always are like variable tolerance, depends upon the level of stenosis. If it is very much narrowed, the complications of diameter of the stenosed valve is very less, the complications are more. If it is the diameter is less, diameter is more, then the tolerance level is more. So it depends upon the level of stenosis. So variable tolerance, usually aortic stenosis is uncomplicated aortic coarctation. And poorly tolerated are mitral stenosis, excuse me, mitral stenosis, peripartum cardiomyopathy, Eisenmenger syndrome, congenital cyanotic heart disease, primary pulmonary hypertension, metallic valve processes. So The biosynthetic valves are well tolerated, but metallic valve prosthetics are poorly tolerated. So, which are all conditions are poorly tolerated? Are you hearing?
बोल.
Which are all the conditions are poorly tolerated? Tell me. Which are all the conditions are poorly tolerated? One of you at least. Stenosed valves, mitral stenosis, then Eisenmenger syndrome, then pulmonary hypertension. So peripartum cardiomyopathy, Eisenmenger syndrome, congenital cyanotic heart disease, primary pulmonary hypertension, metallic valve processes. These are all poorly tolerated. And aortic regurgitations, mitral regurgitation, ASD, VSD, PDA without pulmonary hypertension are well tolerated. And variable tolerance, AS uncomplicated aortic coarctation are variable tolerated. So this is very important slide. Please all of you note down. So which are all the heart diseases are well tolerated, which are poorly tolerated, you should all know. Okay. So, will you advise a patient with Eisenmenger syndrome go for pregnancy?
No.
No. Usually, if the patient is in Eisenmenger syndrome, we advise not the patient to go for conception. And peripartum cardiomyopathy usually are poorly tolerated. Those death rate is more. Mitral stenosis or depends upon the severity of the valvular lesion. So, coming to very important of today's discussion is peripartum cardiomyopathy. Okay, so peripartum cardiomyopathy is nothing but congestive heart failure. Anytime from last month of pregnancy up to 5 months after delivery, we call it as peripartum cardiomyopathy. So, last 1 month of pregnancy followed by 5 months after delivery, anytime if patient goes into failure, congestive heart failure, then we call it as peripartum cardiomyopathy. Usually, it affects the 20 to 35 years of age group. Very young people, young population, young women are affected due to congestive peripartum cardiomyopathy. And the mortality is very high mortality due to CHF, that is congestive heart failure, deep vein thrombosis, and pulmonary embolism. So, with all these conditions, there is mortality is very high. So, which are all the patients would you advise for go for MTP? There is no role for the patient to go for medical termination of pregnancy except in poorly tolerated lesions like Eisenmenger's and with pulmonary hypertension and valvular heart disease, severe mitral stenosis with pulmonary hypertension. We can advise for go for MTP. Otherwise, she can continue the pregnancy. That too, we can terminate the pregnancy only in the first trimester. We can't advise the patient to go for termination in the second trimester. And treatment of grade 3 and grade 4 disease before planning the pregnancy. So always grade 1, grade 2, very well she can conceive or very well she can continue the pregnancy. But if it is grade 3, grade 4, always better to treat the lesion, treat the disease before planning the pregnancy. So, can we go for cardiac surgery during pregnancy? So, yes, we can go for the cardiac surgery during pregnancy. That is balloon mitral valvotomy in second trimester. We can they can go for the prosthetic valves or valvotomy can be done in second trimester, and prosthetic valves always if it is a prosthetic valve, then if it is a metal valve or biosynthetic valve, we have to see what type of valve the heart surgeon is keeping. And according to that, heparin should be given. Injection heparin in first and third trimester, and oral anticoagulant, that is ecosprin, has to be given in the second trimester in case of any cardiac surgery during pregnancy. So balloon valvotomy, mitral valvotomy can be done in the second trimester, and prosthetic valves, that is, if in case of prosthetic valves, heparin should be given for the patient in the first and third trimester, and oral anticoagulants in second trimester. So that is all about heart disease in pregnancy. Okay, we recap again. Can you see the slides? Are you guys pregnancy?
Less than 1% of
1%.
hospitalized cases.
Yeah, for hospitalized cases, there is 1% usually. And 1% that is hospitalized patients I'm talking about. And what are the types of heart disease?
Rheumatic heart disease and congenital heart diseases.
Okay, very good. And incidence of which heart disease more?
Rheumatic heart
Mitral
disease is more
stenosis.
3:1 ratio.
Yes, rheumatic heart disease is more when compared to the congenital heart disease, and it goes by 3:1 ratio. So, which heart lesion is more common in case of rheumatic heart disease?
Endocarditis.
No, no,
Mitral
no.
stenosis.
Mitral stenosis. Mitral stenosis is more common when compared to the other heart diseases. So, what are the rheumatic heart disease? What are the types of rheumatic heart disease?
Mitral stenosis, mitral incompetence, aortic stenosis, and aortic incompetence.
Incompetence. And what about patent ductus arteriosus? Those are congenital heart diseases. So, what are the types of congenital heart disease?
Atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect,
Yeah,
PDA,
very good, very good, very
pulmonary
good.
stenosis,
Septal
aortic
defect.
coarctation.
Very good, very good, very good. Okay, atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect, and pitted arteriosus, Eisenmenger syndrome, all these are congenital heart disease. Congenital heart disease, how do you know it is rheumatic or congenital heart diseases? We usually elicit history. Patient gives history of surgery in the past, or in childhood she has undergone some surgery. She gives a history. So thorough history has to be taken prior admitting the patient. So how do you grade the severity of heart disease?
New York Heart Association guidelines.
Okay, okay. So what are the New York Heart Disease Association guidelines?
There are 4 grades: grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 4, depending on the compromised state on ordinary activity. If there's
Okay.
no compromise on ordinary activity, it's grade 1. If there's little compromise, then that's grade 2. Compromise on ordinary physical activity.
No,
If there is
there is
no
no
compromise,
symptoms at all. In grade 1, usually patient has heart disease, but they never present with the symptoms. Even at rest or even with the small physical activity also, they don't have any symptoms. That is grade 1. Grade 2 is they usually present with minor symptoms or minor breathlessness during the regular physical activity, but they symptoms are relieved at rest. That is grade 2. And grade 3, they have I mean, like, with physical activity they feel breathless, and but at rest they it get relieved. But in case of grade 4, they have severe symptoms. Even at rest also they present the with breathlessness, orthopnea, cough, everything. Okay. So, which are all conditions in these four? Now, I'm not going detail about each heart disease because it takes long time and it doesn't complete. We can't complete it in one class. So overall, how do you manage? What are the types of heart disease? What are the how do you manage antenatally? And what are the complications you can expect in case of heart disease? So overall, I have covered everything. So when these which are all patients would you like to admit, or which are all patients, how the antenatal checkup should be for them according to NYHA classification? Any one of you?
Antenatal checkups every fortnightly till 30 weeks and later weekly for grades 1 and 2.
One
Grades
and
3 and 4 hospitalized.
grade 3 and 4 has to be hospitalized, and grade 1 and 2 ask the patient to come every 2 weeks once, every 15 days once patient has to become advised. And then what and all you see in each regular antenatal checkup, what you see in the patient?
Any warning signs of congestive heart failure like shortness of breath, cough, chest pain?
Very
Uh,
good. Renal edema and associated with anemia. If anemia is there, it aggravates the condition. So we have to treat the anemia. So what else you do? So up to how many weeks you will ask the patient to come every fortnightly?
up to 30 weeks, ma'am.
Yes, very good. Up to 30 weeks, we can advise the patient to come every fortnightly. After 30 weeks, patient has to
Weekly once.
come weekly. Okay, so you always has to watch for signs and symptoms of congestive heart failure. Okay, as soon as you see that patient is having severe pedal edema, breathlessness, and any arrhythmia, admit the patient. So, will you admit the patient in a clinic or a small nursing home? Where you will admit the patient?
Tertiary
In
healthcare
tertiary
center.
center.
Has to be admitted in the tertiary center only. Okay. And then what are the facilities you should have to treat the heart disease? What are the
Cardiologist, ICUs.
ICU care and experienced obstetrician, round the clock anesthetist, and then the complete backup should be there to treat the heart disease. So antenatally, would you like to give heparin for the patient antenatally? And which case patient you have to give endocarditis prophylaxis? Which are all conditions you give endocarditis prophylaxis? What is the treatment drug dose? You have to tell me. Any one of you. Heparin can be given in severe heart disease in the first and third trimester. In the second trimester, we have to give ecosprin for the patient and infective endocarditis prophylaxis. Which are all conditions we give? Rheumatic heart disease with mitral stenosis, as well as prosthetic valves, that is metal valves. Those patients earlier they have undergone prosthetic valves treatment, undergone surgery. Those patients we have to give endocarditis prophylaxis. What is the endocarditis prophylaxis? How do you give? I have discussed in one slide. None of you is not able to answer. What is that?
Intravenous
Ampicillin and gentamicin, ma'am.
intramuscular injection of ampicillin
Ampicillin,
milligrams.
ampicillin has to be given
Injection.
gentamicin. Gentamicin 1.5 grams IV that has to be given every twice a day has to be, I mean like twice a day has to
Six.
be given. And then what else? Yeah, every sixth hourly has to be given. Then what else?
Adequate
So
analgesics.
yeah, very good. Patient once he sets into labor, good analgesics should be given. And how do you manage it in case of first and second stage of labor? And how do you manage a congestive heart failure? So how do you manage?
Bed
So as
rest in semi-recumbent position.
yes, patient should be in any heart disease has to be in semi-recumbent position. Not that patient is only in failure. Any heart disease patient should be in the semi-recumbent position only. What else? So digitalization, I told, digitalis has to be given and furosemide, diuretics has to be given to decrease the cardiac overload. And what else has to be given? We have to give endocardiac prophylaxis as well as thromboprophylaxis to prevent DVTs. Thromboprophylaxis, we have to advise the patient to use the DVT stockings. Okay. And in first and second stage of labor, how do you manage? Someone was telling earlier, semi-recombinant position, and how do you give IV fluids? At what rate?
Restricted to 75 ml per hour.
Yeah, very good, very good. It has to be restricted to the to prevent cardiac load. We have to restrict the fluids to 75 milligram, 75 ml per kg, 75 per ml per minute. And then what else?
Monitor vitals every half an hour.
Section is preferred or normal delivery is preferred.
Normal delivery is preferred to C-section.
No absolute indication for cesarean section in case of heart disease. Unless there is any fetal compromise, we have to advise the patient to go for the normal delivery and put the patient in semi-recombinant position. Oxygen should be given. Continuous fetal heart monitoring. And how do you check pulse rate BP? Every half an hourly pulse rate BP monitoring has to be done. And then how do you manage in second stage of labor? Second stage of labor, how do you manage?
Cut short the second stage by using by outlet forceps delivery and avoiding methergin and only using oxytocin.
So whatever which causes the vasoconstriction, those drugs has to be avoided, like methogen, and methogen has to be avoided. What methogen is nothing but methyl ergometrin. Okay, any other doubts you have? Okay, we'll close this session. Next class will be ortho class for you. Please be online. Oh, log off and log. I think Kiran will take care of all this. Yeah, yeah. So you have to log out and then log in. Can you hear me? Log. Okay, so I think I'll call Kiran. Yeah.